Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Hopefully you guys are doing well. Thanks for joining today. We are on the Coxton Sub for another round of operations. This time, however, we are heading south from the city of Johnsville. This will be the first time that we run any local from this yard, but that is mostly thanks to me getting the hump yard up and working. So today, stay tuned as we get ready to discuss and operate the Brockwell turn. Alright, let's take a quick look at our train for today. So we have our power up at the front, and then next up are cars bound for Moscow. These are cars that start with MO. All the MOL cars are cars that are going to the local or team track there in Moscow. Any car after that with MO are cars that are bound to industries in Moscow, which there are 9 of them, and those 9 industries are switched by the Moscow Industrial Short Line. So all these cars starting with MO that are not MOL will go to Moscow, but then they'll go to the interchange yard to be picked up and switched out by the Mosey. Next up are CA cars. Any of the CAB cars are cars going to the bleach plant. Those cars right there are loaded with salt. And following that, we have a couple of CATs. Those are cars that are going to the team track in Castlegate. And those will just be setting out in the yard. And then lastly, we have the BR for Brockwell cars, and BRP is for the paper mill. And then, actually, I think all of them are to the paper mill. Yeah, sure enough. So today, we're only switching the paper mill in Brockwell. We will actually have some pickups at some of the other industries there in Brockwell, but we'll get to that later. And here we have a cutscene of the hump yard. So we have 15 tracks on the left are for cars bound to industries in Johnsville, and the 12 tracks on the right are for cars bound to other parts on the route. And then the yard on the far right, 6 tracks where we are departing, that is the arrival departure yard. So that has 18,000 feet of tracks for receiving trains, which is, considering that we do 3,000 foot trains on this railroad, that, equates to more or less 6 trains. And this is a train that heads south. We haven't run very many trains heading south on this route, mostly because I had not finished the track work up in the Johnsville area, but that is finished now. And I'm happy that that's finished. Now I could start actually getting the details in and everything, but that does allow us to finally start running some trains to the south. Plus, I now have the hump yard operable. It still needs just a little bit of fine-tuning, but it's getting there. This is one of my favorite parts of Moscow. I do still have a bit of detailing I need to do. I need to replace the grass with Turfex and things like that. But for the most part, I really like this area of Moscow as we come up here and we pass under the Moscow Industrial, the Mosey. And here we are passing the track where the Mosey keeps their locomotives. We are going to go ahead and stop not too long after this so we can do some switching. The interchange yard is kind of in the background, a little bit to the left of our train. The interchange yard has 3 tracks, and then right from there the Mosey has very quick and easy access to get to their what we call the west yard, which is their yard on the west side of the Southern Pacific Main, where they can do some classification. The Mosey does also have an east yard, which I did feature just a little bit of that when I talked about how to operate the Mosey back several months ago. And I definitely will get some operations done with the Mosey, but I would like to get some more of the town redone. As you can see at the scene that I just showed, and even on this one, if you look to the left, you can see those old European-looking houses. Those are all slated to be replaced. And so I've been intentionally waiting on the Mosey local video or 2, depending on how much work we have to do, because I want to get some of these details refined and looking at least respectable. Right now, this area doesn't really look that great except right around the industries. So I definitely know I can do a lot of improvements, and I definitely will do some of them before I feature that video. But this is us shoving everything back in, and we have now disconnected the cut that we're leaving in the interchange yard. The rest of these cars here at the front are going to go on the team track or local track, which is right there to the left of where we were just looking. So we are going to take this switch, and once we shove these cars back, they will be in their spot. This is a really large team track here. It's probably one of the biggest ones on the route, and that's mostly because there is actually a lot of industrial activity in this area, and here we get to serve some of our smaller customers with some transload activities. Definitely haven't added any detail to that track except the pavement. So lots of nice work to do there to make it look a lot more active and busy as it typically would be. The really nice thing about still being able to model team tracks is it lets me ship kind of whatever I want, wherever I want. It gives me a lot of flexibility in shipments. It's also one of the big reasons that I haven't actually used industries that load or unload cars, because that would actually limit what I could ship. If those multiple industry assets would be able to take more than 4 cargoes, that would be great, but they just can't, and it breaks me. It really does. All right, we're going to continue heading south, and now at the front of our train are the Castlegate cars. As I said before, those are loaded with salt. We do have a salt mine here on the route where those are loaded. I don't actually model the mine itself. I only model the loading facilities. I've always kept a switcher up there to do that work, but I think I'm actually going to dump that switcher. There's really not enough traffic to justify keeping a switcher over there. I don't think any railroad would ever do that. I think instead I might make that a job of this train in the future. We'll see. I'm not sure yet. But I definitely want to plan on somehow getting rid of the switcher that sits over at the salt mine. Here we are just cruising with the cab view through Moscow. Personally, I like to drive in the cab view. I know that these locomotives I'm using don't necessarily have the most incredible cabs on the planet. However, this one is definitely better than the default cab. So, not really complaining over that. And here we are one of the many times crossing over the Arkansas River. This railroad doesn't officially run along the Arkansas River, but it does cross it 3 or 4 times, so you can, if you wanted to, you can call it the Arkansas River line. And we have seen this in the video before. This is the Castlegate Co-op. Get a little horn there for the rail fans. One thing I haven't talked about too much before, but is very important to discuss, is on this route we do have a speed limit on the tracks. But that speed limit on the tracks is for passenger trains, since we do still run some passenger trains. All the freight trains are limited to 40 miles an hour unless they are a priority train like a reefer train or one of the intermodal or piggyback trains. Those trains can go at track speed, but any other typical local or manifest train is limited to 40 miles an hour. Here we are with the approach medium coming into Castlegate. That's because we're going to take the diverge into the siding, but the siding is clear for at least one more block. Actually, no, the siding is at it's at clear. That's right. If it was at a diverging approach with a red over yellow, then the signal that we showed previously would have been a double yellow for advance approach. Now in Castlegate, we will keep the switcher here. That is the one we're looking at right now. That's because Castlegate does get enough traffic from different trains throughout the day in order to justify having its own switcher. So there are 2 major industries in Castlegate, as well as 2 coal mines. I'm not sure yet how I want to do the operations involving the coal mines. I'm not sure if I want that to be just a switcher or not. I really don't think so. I think I want to have more or less kind of a dedicated coal train, but I'm just not sure yet. I'm still working on figuring all that out. But there are 2 coal mines here. They can put out probably 15 to 20 100-ton hoppers each. So plenty of space for a good-sized train there. Just not really sure how I want to do that. I did leave some yard space for that, so I've at least created enough capacity in the infrastructure to not have to add any in order to accommodate it. I just need to figure out how best to actually model it. So right now, we're just going to shove all of these cars back into an open track here in Castlegate. That's because, of course, Castlegate has a dedicated switcher. So there's no need for us to do any switching here. The job of the Brockwell local is mostly just to get the switching done in Brockwell. Brockwell has a lot of stuff that keeps it busy. It's plus its own little yard even. And so the Brockwell local actually gets into Brockwell and then kind of buries itself off of the main and off of the siding, and has plenty of space to do all the work it needs. All right, so we are going to pull up here. We only have a yellow. We're clear to the end of the block here because we're actually supposed to have a meet. In a previous video, we had a KCS train that departed from Highbridge, and it had been sitting in hydrogen the hole for a while, but they finally got the clear, and so now the dispatcher has us waiting for him. We're going to try to get him on off of our rails and onto the home KCS rails. So here he comes just now. This is about 4 miles north of where we were over in Castlegate. Personally, these rural scenes with fields that go on forever is absolutely my favorite kind of scene to model. For what it's worth, they can also be done pretty quickly. All right, we're going to sit right here and wait for him to show up. And here he comes. The KCS does interchange with the Cotton Belt here in two places, one in Coxton and the other in Moscow. The one in Moscow is not very big, though. That's why this train actually runs from Coxton. This is where we get most of our interchange traffic. But it will get off of the Cotton Belt main in Moscow and head to the east, where there is about 2 miles out or so, there's a KCS staging yard, and that's the theoretical end of the line as far as KCS goes. I think there's 5 tracks in that yard. We've got a couple of locals, space for a manifest, and then space for a co-op train that I haven't actually run yet, at least on video, that runs most of the route working the co-ops. I definitely enjoy running that train, but it just takes so long. I just haven't run it yet. Honestly, for all the stuff it has, I'd have to probably make a 3-part video to get it covered, which would be great, and eventually I will. I just haven't done it yet. All right, we've got the green now to go ahead and continue our journey south. So next up is Brockwell. It's about 7 miles or so. Too bad we're not a passenger train. This is the only area of the route where you can get up to 65, I think. Maybe it's 70. It might not be, but I think it might be 70. But of course, we're going to keep it to 40 because we are, 1, a short train, and 2, not a priority freight. So. I do have some of the detail turned down here to, just kind of facilitate a more smooth operation for the sake of the video. But I will be honest, this area looks nice when you have the details up and everything. But this especially will be nice once I get the Turfex and all the more detailed things I've done for trackside up to this point. All right, here we are. Looks like double yellow, so advance approach. That's good. Means we've got 2 blocks to go. And that makes sense, actually, because this signal here is an approach restricting, meaning that the next signal is restricting. So we've got to be down to 15 miles an hour before we get to that next signal. You can see we're at 25 right now. And now we are right at 15, 16 coming in. Nailed it. I mean, it's kind of unfair. I've done this a couple times. All right, well, we have now made it into Brockwell. So Brockwell is a very busy place with a lot of stuff to do. So what I'm going to do is save this part of the job for next time. Once we get all this done and get all the switching done, we'll travel back. There won't really be that much work on the way back. We just have one stop at Castlegate, and then I think that's it. Actually, we don't have a stop in Moscow, and that's fine. But stay tuned for that, guys. Thanks always for watching, and I've enjoyed it. I will see you guys next time.